Well, Nick, I couldn't tell you what he was doing for the rest of the day.
Well, I can tell you that he spent yesterday meeting with the president of Ghana and the leader of the opposition in Belarusia. Why is that more important than what's happening in Southampton?
Well, Nick, what's important is what we do.
No, but why would the Prime Minister not seek to address this?
Hey everyone, welcome back to Julian Discourse. We all know the classic establishment dodge. When institutions fail spectacularly, politicians hide behind ongoing investigations to avoid accountability. In this explosive clip, LBC's Nick Ferrari corners Labour's policing minister, Sarah Jones, over a horrific murder and the staggering police failures surrounding it. Instead of offering transparency, she completely stonewalls. She refuses to confirm if the officers involved are still on the street, and desperately makes excuses for Keir Starmer prioritizing foreign dignitaries over a boiling domestic crisis. Hit subscribe, and let's watch this out-of-touch Labour narrative completely collapse.
Look, we're dealing with the most horrific murder, and I think all of us are horrified at what we've seen and feel for Henry's family so strongly. There was a protest last night. 2 people have been arrested so far. 1, as I understand it, for assaulting a police officer, 1 for possession of a weapon. There was some injury in terms of the police, and the police dog was injured, and there were some scenes which were completely unacceptable. There may be more charges as the police review the footage from drone footage, for example, that they had overnight. And I would say that, of course, we all understand the emotion that people are feeling, but I would ask that people take that emotion and allow justice to take its course so that we can make sure we do the right thing, rather than in the case of last night, actually, assaults and attacks on our police officers.
But, Minister, you say let justice take its course, but it's reported the officers involved in handcuffing Henry Novak as he bled to death will not be referred for a misconduct investigation. Why so?
I don't think that's correct. What is happening is the IOPC are doing an investigation, and there will be consequences.
Not been referred for misconduct at this point, Minister.
So at the moment,
is it right they're still serving on frontline duties?
I can't answer that. That would be for the IOPC to
Why
decide.
Can't you tell me whether they're still on the front line? Don't the people of Southampton have a right to know?
Well, I'd say a couple of things, Nick, if I can. The first is that there is a police officer and his family who have had to move house because they've been wrongly identified in this case. We need to allow the IOPC the space and the time to do what they need to do. During the trial, the officers will have been witnesses. The family obviously will have been involved in the day-to-day of the trial. There is now a process which the IOPC, an investigation which the IOPC are undergoing, looking at all of the footage, talking to the officers, talking to the family, and they will reach their conclusions, and whatever they find, there will be consequences for any wrongdoing that is discovered there.
Okay, but Minister, I asked whether they're still serving frontline duties. Do you know? Yes, whether they are or whether they're not.
I think it's for the IOPC.
But do you know whether they're still on the front line, Minister?
I am, of course, speaking to the Chief Constable. I've spoken to the Police and Crime Commissioner.
Well, what does the Chief Constable say about this?
That we need to make sure that justice is served here, and we need to get to the bottom of what happened.
Have you asked the Chief Constable if these officers are still serving? It's causing concern.
Yeah, and Nick, I'm so sorry. I do know the answer, but I'm not going to say, because there is an investigation ongoing, and it's not right for me on this programme at the moment.
All right, the conversations that you've had with the Chief Constable down at Hampshire, have you referred to this document which apparently was released saying that the force saying in 2022, and I quote, being anti-racist, ethical and inclusive is top of our agenda? Would you be supportive of that?
Nick, you were just talking to a previous caller about the history of racism that we know has existed. We know that whether it's the murder of Stephen Lawrence or other events that have happened through history, there has been a challenge of racism in policing. But everybody is equal under the law, and that is very clear in law, and that is very clear in the training of. It is very clear in the training that all officers receive, and it is very clear in our minds and in the Home Secretary's minds. And I know it will be very clear as a question that people will be asking when they see that footage. I understand that, but everyone is equal under the law, and that is.
But what does the Chief Constable say about that document circulating in the force?
I haven't talked to him about that document. I've talked to him about exactly what was happening yesterday, the preparation he was making for the protest that was happening, and the sort of real-time policing that he's responsible for.
All right, let's come to another matter which is a related conversation. You're probably aware that the College of Policing and the National Police Chiefs Council produced guidance last year treating suspects, and again I quote, according to their specific needs, circumstances and experiences. What does that mean?
I think they are reviewing that document. Everyone is equal under the law. That needs to be clear. I think it's right that they're reviewing that document.
Do you think everyone was equal under the law in the case of Henry Novak?
Look, I've seen what you've seen, and everybody will be making their own conclusions from that. It's hard to watch. It's hard to understand how that can have been possible, but we can't. Look, the family have said, Henry's family have explicitly said, we shouldn't have knee-jerk reactions, we shouldn't allow this to increase hatred and tension, and that his death should be a time where we try to improve the situation we have in terms of knife crime, and that it leads to good rather than ill. That is his request, and I think we should all listen to that. But look, I understand people's feelings here. I share them.
What do you think went wrong that night?
I don't know. There was. All I know is I have been in. You probably have too. Been in response cars.
Probably not as many as you, but I've been in a few.
And you know what it's like. You hear the radio. You hear the call. Very fast moving. You have to jump to and you. This is why training is so important with officers, because you are jumping into the unknown in many cases. You have to be able to understand what's going on, do the right thing. Obviously, protecting life is the number one priority, and you have to respond to everything that's happening around you. There are questions to answer, undoubtedly, about what happened in this situation.
Well, there's a question to answer. The man who subsequently has been, of course, jailed for the murder of the student was reported to police for stealing religious weapons, plural, 2 years ago, 2 years earlier, I'm sorry, but no one was charged. Another failure by Hampshire police to be addressed, isn't it?
Well, look, I don't know all of the details of that beyond what you've just said. He was
ceremonial Shashtar blades worth £1,000 believed to have been stolen from the Gurdwara Khalsa Darbar in Southampton in 2023.
Yeah,
no action was taken.
There were 2 people arrested, one of whom was the murderer of Henry, and there wasn't enough evidence to charge, as I understand it. But look, there are wider questions here. He had, as I understand it, a lot of weapons in his house. We have to do more to tackle people who are obsessed with violence, who are gathering multiple weapons in their home. There is legislation we can do to help with this, which we have just passed. If somebody buys more than 5 or 6 weapons online, the online company now has a duty to tell the police. There's all kinds of bits of legislation we are doing and work we are doing, and we are, as you know, seeing some success on knife crime. Knife murders down 27%, but we have such a long way to go on this, and so many more things we can do. And if there are lessons to learn from the history of this man's life and when he had interactions with the police, we will learn them.
Last minute or so together, talking of lessons to be learned, the leader of the Conservatives, Kemi Badenoch, says that this is a Stephen Lawrence moment for lessons to be learned. How do you interpret that from the leader of the Conservative Party, Minister?
Well, she's perfectly entitled to say what she wants to say. I think this is a moment where the country collectively is horrified, quite rightly, with what we have seen, and the country collectively is wanting us to get to the bottom of this and to make sure we put whatever went wrong right. So on that front, I think this is a moment. Absolutely, I would agree.
So how do you interpret that? If this is, as Kemi Badenoch says, a Stephen Lawrence moment, as police and crime minister, how do you interpret that?
Well, I interpret it in the way that I've just said. This is a moment where the country is looking to us and to the police to answer for what has happened and to put right what's gone wrong.
And lastly, on the subject for you listening to government, both Nigel Farage and Kemi Badenoch were on breakfast radio and television respectively yesterday. We didn't get a statement from the Prime Minister until around 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Why so?
I think there was a statement in the House of Commons from the Home Secretary, which was right.
Yeah, I'm talking about Sir Keir Starmer. So
proper.
You have the party leaders of Reform, you have the party leader of the Conservatives going on my show in one case, going on ITV in another. Nothing from the PM in person until 5 p.m. Why?
Well, Nick, I couldn't tell you what he was doing for the rest of the day.
Well, I can tell you that he spent yesterday meeting with the President of Ghana and the leader of the opposition in Belarusia. Why is that more important than what's happening in Southampton?
Well, Nick, what's important is what we do.
No, but why would the Prime Minister not seek to address this?
He has addressed it.
You've got Nigel Farage going off in one area, you've got Kemi Badenoch going off in another. You look to the Prime Minister of the country and he's meeting the leader of the Belarusian opposition.
The Prime Minister of our country made a statement, was interviewed on this, did comment. What matters is what we do, and what matters is how we respond. And the family have said to us, no knee-jerk reactions, no division, no hatred. That's not what we want. That's what we should do.
But isn't this a time for leadership?
It is a time for leadership,
and
why
it is
did it
take until 5 o'clock in the afternoon?
And the Home Secretary, who is responsible for these areas, was in the chamber for 1.5 hours answering questions about what's happened. When will making a statement.
You or the Home Secretary be going down to Southampton?
Whenever it is right for us to do so.
What does that mean?
Well, the police are doing their job.
Well, hold on,
the Home Secretary,
Minister,
yes.
We had an incident, we have to tread carefully, we had an incident in Golders Green recently, and quite rightly the Home Secretary went, the Commissioner of the Police went, and the Prime Minister went. Why has no one been to Southampton?
So the awful murder of Henry was in December. We've had the trial. The family are very interested in how we tackle knife crime. I would love to meet the family. The Home Secretary would, the Prime Minister would. I absolutely know. They have just come out of a trial. The local member of Parliament, of course, has. When it is right for them to want to speak to us, we all want to speak to them. Of course we do. We are in constant contact with the local police, as you would expect. There are other trials ongoing. The murderer's mother has been in police custody for the last 7 months and is going to be sentenced in July. There are ongoing cases here. So, of course, we will do the right thing, Nick, in terms of what action needs to be taken and what interaction. We will be led by the family, of course, on when we meet with them.
Well, very grateful for the update on events last night, and to echo your calls of demonstrations and violence like that will achieve nothing. Sarah Jones, you're right. Thank you.
You know, there is nothing more insulting to the public than a politician using bureaucratic procedure to cover up institutional cowardice. When Labour's policing minister Sarah Jones sat in that studio, she couldn't even answer the most basic, fundamental question. Are the officers involved in this catastrophic failure still patrolling the streets of Southampton? Instead, she completely stonewalled and hid behind the convenient shield of an ongoing investigation. To understand why the British public is completely exhausted by this government today in 2026, you have to look at their entirely inverted priorities. In 2023, a known suspect literally steals ceremonial bladed weapons from a Gurdwara. Hampshire police take zero action. Fast forward and a tragic murder occurs, compounded by a shocking, disorganized police response. And where is the Prime Minister while a British city is reeling from a boiling domestic crisis? He is completely missing in action, prioritizing international photo ops with the President of Ghana and the Belarusian opposition. Starmer cowardly waited until 5:21 p.m. to issue a basic public statement. When a government abandons the field and refuses to communicate, they leave a massive political vacuum, which is exactly why figures like Nigel Farage and Kemi Badenoch had to step in to lead the national conversation on morning television. This is the defining characteristic of the modern elite establishment. They are obsessed with managing their global image and lecturing the working class, while completely abandoning their core duty to protect citizens at home. They hide behind procedural excuses to avoid answering for the devastating consequences of their own institutional failures. A nation cannot survive when its leaders consistently prioritize international virtue signaling over domestic safety. Thank you for watching Julian Discourse. If you refuse to let the establishment dodge accountability and appreciate unapologetic, fact-driven commentary, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and I'll see you in the next one.